Hello again, everyone. So continuing Toronto week, I'm going to talk about the Maple Leafs today of the NHL. Last year they had a 30-44-8 record, so total 68 points. Obviously not a great record, not a great season for them, but that's what Leafs fans are used to. I think the Leafs players are kind of used to being on a golf course anyway than they are a hockey rink, but I'm just kidding. Hopefully they'll have a good year this upcoming year. To make the playoffs, I think in this upcoming season they have to find a way to get 30 more points, so at least 15 more wins, and we'll see if that's going to happen. Recently, they re-signed Bernier, their goaltender, to another 2-year contract. Not quite sure if he's the best person for that job, if he's a goaltender that can get them over that hump and into the playoffs and deep into the playoffs. I think he's a competent goalie, but not necessarily that elite goaltender like a Carey Price or a Devin Dubnyk that's going to take you deep in the playoffs. Last year, Bernier, just to look at his stats real quick, he went 21, 28, and 7 with a 2.87 GAA and a 912 save percentage in the 58 games he played in. Like I've said in the past, in my opinion, to be a successful goaltender and one who stays in the league for a while, you have to have a save percentage at least above 900. So, that's one goal for every 10 shots. And if you have a solid defense ahead of you, hopefully you're not seeing more than 20-25 shots a night. But that was his record last year. We'll see if he'll have a better year going forward now that he's got a new contract. Their backup, Reimer, last year went 9-16-1 with a 3.16 GAA and a 907 save percentage. So not great numbers from him. I don't think he'll get in too many games. I think Bernier is definitely their number one, and Reimer is a okay backup, but definitely not somebody you're going to see get into too many games. Looking at the draft real quick, obviously with a bad season, you're going to get high draft picks and people that will hopefully have an impact on your team down the road. Number 4 overall pick, the center, Mitch Marner, who plays for the London Knights. Is who they drafted 4th overall. We'll see if he cracks the roster, and maybe he'll go back to the London Knights and play with them again this upcoming year and develop more in the OHL. Or maybe he'll play for the Marlies in the AHL. We'll see what happens with him. Some other guys they drafted, defenseman Dermott, who is a guy they drafted with the 34th overall pick, so practically a first rounder. See if maybe he does some production for them, and maybe he'll crack the roster and be a defenseman for them, at least a defenseman maybe down the road. And the last guy I'll mention, just because this name to me just sounds like a Leaf player, I don't know why, but Bracco, not totally positive on his first name, but Bracco, he's a right winger they drafted 61st overall. For some reason, that last name just sounds like a Leaf player. I don't know why, but Bracco, Maple Leafs, it just sounds like a name that works in the Maple Leaf system, so we'll see if he plays for them down the road. Looking at some free agents they signed, obviously they lost Kessel, big hit for them for sure. But I think it's a good trade. I think they got some good young players in that trade. They got a 3rd-round pick back in 2016 along with that trade. And I just think Kessel obviously didn't turn into the player they were hoping he would be. Still a great player, but not the guy that they were hoping Kessel was going to be when they first traded for him. Looking at now the players that obviously materialized from that trade, Tyler Seguin's playing great in Dallas. But I think Kessel hopefully can turn his career around with a new organization and a new place. Maybe he can get a little bit better. Obviously, playing in Pittsburgh, he doesn't have to be the guy. He's playing behind Malkin and Crosby, so he can go out and score his 35 goals and not have to be worried about being a captain or a face of a franchise. Those roles are already taken, so I think he'll do fine in Pittsburgh. But looking at the free agents they brought in, Parenteau, last year he had 8 goals and 14 assists in the 56 games he played in, so with a full season he could easily be a 10-15 goal scorer. Daniel Winnick had 9 goals and 25 assists, and then Mark Arcobello had 17 goals and 14 assists. So it's definitely some good players they brought in through free agency, and I think they're going to have a good impact on this team. Looking at the forwards really quick, Kadri obviously has been given that 1-year contract. He was just born in 1990, so still a young guy, younger than me. So he's making more money than I will ever dream of making, which is nice. So hopefully he can take this year that the contract he's gotten and can show that he deserves to get a long-term contract, and that's definitely what he's going to have to do this year is prove it. He had 18 goals and 21 assists last year, so definitely respectable numbers. But if he wants to continue to be on this team and get a long-term contract, he's going to have to go out and have a 25-30 goal season, and I think that's not something that is out of the question for him. I think that's an expectation that he needs to meet and that he can meet. He just needs to go out and do that. I think he's kind of had some confidence issues, and I think that's obviously a problem for a young guy, but obviously new head coach, a lot of new people in the front office. Hopefully they're going to be able to instill that confidence into the kid and say, we've given you this 1-year contract to prove yourself, go out and do that, and just show that you believe in him, and hopefully he'll be able to go out and have a good season for you. With the departure of Kessel, I think Bozak and JVR, James Van Riemsdyk, become your main guys, and I think that they're definitely capable of being your main guys, can have a solid season for this team. JVR last year had 27 goals, 29 assists, so he's definitely capable of having a 50-plus point season. I think he can be a 30-plus goal scorer for sure. Bozak had 23 goals and 26 assists, another guy that can potentially have a 30-goal season for this team as well. And I think those three guys have to go out and have that kind of production for this team to be successful and make a playoff push. Because I know Toronto fans want the Leafs in the playoffs, but the last thing you want is to get into the playoffs and get knocked out in a sweep in the first round or something. That's going to be real demoralizing to a young team, especially with all these young guys you picked up in that Kessel trade. You want to be able to make the playoffs and go deep in them. If you did get knocked out in the first round, but it was a 6 or 7 game series, at least that shows you're heading in the right direction. But you don't want to just make the playoffs with an 8th seed and then get knocked out in 4 games. But we'll see what happens. Other guys to keep an eye on, Holland had 11 goals and 14 assists in the 62 games he played in. So if he has a full season, maybe he can be another 20-goal scorer for this team. We'll see what happens. Lupul only played in 55 games last year, so I think that was a big hit to the defense, to the offensive side of the game for this team for sure. Great veteran, 10 goals, 11 assists in those 55 games, so you give him a full season if he can play healthy. I think he'll be a great veteran presence for this team in that forward core. Komarov had 8 goals and 18 assists. So again, 62 games he played in, give him another 20 games. Maybe he can be another 20-goal scorer. I'm saying a lot of guys that could be 20-goal scorers. Not too many teams are going to have a ton of those, but definitely these guys have the potential to do that. Matthias, who was born in 88, so still a younger guy. He had 18 goals and 9 assists, so he can easily have a 20-goal season, no problem there. And lastly, Beck, who was just born in 91, a young guy they have. 8 goals and 8 assists in 62 games for him. So they got some young guys on this team. They got some veterans. In that trade with Kessel, they picked up a forward Kapanen, who was just born in 96. So he's not even in his 20s yet. So he's definitely a young kid that hopefully can take this team in the right direction. If he even cracks the roster, if he doesn't, that's fine. I think he can play for the Marlies, and then maybe crack the roster next season or a couple years from now, and that'll be okay. But they got some good young guys. They got some good veterans. Obviously, they got Guy and Kadri who needs to prove himself, so he's going to go out and play hard every day. Not that all these guys shouldn't be playing hard every day. Your career is playing a sport, which is dreams for many kids, and you're getting paid multi-million dollars to do that. So you got to put in the effort every night, and I think that these guys are going to be able to do that. As much as I talked about Bernier and how his stats are decent, but I don't think he's an elite goaltender, the defense you have in front of your goaltender is obviously going to have a big impact on that. If your defense isn't that great, then your goaltender is going to have to be making ridiculous saves and go above and beyond what he's probably expected to do. And a guy with a 2.87 GAA is a solid GAA. Anything under 3 is decent in my opinion. But if your defense sucks, then your goaltender's probably going to suck too. So you have to have a solid defense, and I think the Leafs have some pieces that are going to be able to do that. Riley, obviously the young guy in this defense, a 5th overall pick back in 2012. He had 8 goals and 21 assists last year for this team, so he can definitely be a presence in the offensive side of the puck. From the defense position, he can have an impact on the offensive side of the ice. But I think he's definitely going to be the cornerstone of this defense going forward. Just born in '94, young guy. Another guy that they picked up in a trade was Marison, who was born in '92. He had a goal and 4 assists in 41 games last year, so a young player. Harrington is a young defenseman they picked up in the Kessel trade. He's just born in '93. So those are really the young guys you have there. Gardner, who was just born in 1990, he was the 17th overall pick back in 2008. He had 4 goals and 20 assists. So I think that's a solid combination there. Gardner and Riley. Add in obviously Phaneuf, last guy I'll talk about, who had 3 goals and 26 assists last year, which are solid numbers. Not great for a captain. I think Phaneuf definitely needs to have more of an impact on this team, and I'm not sure if maybe he's the right choice for a captain for this team. If it's me, maybe you go with Van Riemsdyk, maybe you go with Bozak. As a captain for this team, maybe you pick a little bit of a younger guy. Like I said, with Bozak was born in '86, JVR '89, Phaneuf was born in '85. So obviously Bozak isn't that much older than Phaneuf, but maybe he'd be a good guy to have the C. Maybe that would alleviate a little bit of the pressure from Phaneuf. Playing for the Leafs, you're obviously playing in a very high demanding market, and if you're the captain of the Leafs, that adds on so much pressure. If you're the captain of the Buffalo Sabres or the Arizona Coyotes, it's not a lot of pressure added onto that. You're not playing in a high hockey market, but you're doing that in Toronto. So you add the captain, that's a lot of pressure to the guy, and I think he can handle the pressure, but 3 goals, 26 assists, I think you expect more out of Phaneuf. And definitely between Riley, Gardner, and Phaneuf, I think those three guys can easily combine for 80 assists from the defensive position as a core group there. So that's the defense. And like I said, as long as they can find a way to have Bernier be successful and not put him in tricky situations, I think the Leafs have a shot at maybe making the playoffs. Like I said, they're going to have to find a way to maybe, flop the record and go 44, 30, and 8 kind of thing, and then maybe they squeak into the playoffs or something like that. But they definitely have to improve a lot. So hopefully with the players they've added through free agency, through that Kessel trade, the 2-year deal to Bernier, as well as the year deal to Kadri, will give them that little extra oomph to prove themselves and have a good season, and they'll be heading in the right direction. But those are my thoughts on the Leafs. Thank you again all for listening and watching. You can follow me on Twitter at gham614, and I will be back later on in the week where I will finish Toronto week off with my look at the Blue Jays. A lot of action going on there. Thank you again all for the support. I do appreciate it, and that's all for now. Bye-bye.